throughout the next few months, we're talking about the launch of our new wheelchair. So we just innovated to a brand new wheelchair called the Gent for Joy. And it's technically the fourth design that we've ever launched. And it will end up taking the place of the other wheelchairs that currently exist. It's a new product with amazing features.
Well, it's always a treat to share amazing stories of generosity on this podcast. And today we're going to talk about giving out free wheelchairs around the globe with an organization called Free Wheelchair Mission. They've already given out over 1.5 million wheelchairs, which sounds like an amazing, staggering number. But did you know that over 80 million people in the world still need wheelchairs? It is such a need. And when you're disabled in a third world developing country, so hard to do your life. And this organization comes alongside people, blesses them with these gifts of these wheelchairs. And we're going to have an incredible conversation today with their CEO, Nuka Hart. So glad that you're here, and stay tuned for a great conversation. Well, today I'm joined in the studio by Nuka Hart, who is the CEO of Free Wheelchair Mission. Hello, Nuka. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Hi, Kim. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. And I think without any further ado, I would love to jump in and have you explain to our listeners what is the organization all about that you lead, because it has a tremendous impact around the globe.
Free Wheelchair Mission's been around for 24 years. And just like our name, we give out wheelchairs for free to individuals that are in need, dire need in the developing world. And we do that through a network of like-minded partners globally. We're a faith-based humanitarian organization. We manufacture our wheelchairs and then we ship them to our partners. And then they are trained to assemble them and provide them to individuals who may have a variety of reasons why they need a wheelchair, but the most important thing is that they need hope and they need someone to come alongside them and provide that resource, because they have the limited access in the countries where they live, the regions where they live. And so we provide the wheelchair and then we give them that message, the all-important message that they're not forgotten by God and they're worthy, and that they should see the wheelchair as a gift from Him.
So beautiful. I was looking through your website, and one of the stories that stood out was the mom, Catherine, who had 4 children, had a stroke, and here her husband is having to carry her places. And, you know, we think in America about the ADA and all of our rules and laws that help people who are disabled, and yet in these third world countries, it's near impossible to even survive, make it, and take care of others. And that wheelchair brought a smile to her face for the first time in a long time, and it just turned her life around. And I'm sure you just have so many stories like that. I mean, you mentioned in our pre-conversation that you're sending around the globe roughly 60,000 to 70,000 wheelchairs. And each one, if someone wants to sponsor a wheelchair or give a gift, is $96. And these shipping containers arrive. And then I would love to be on a trip and be there assembling those wheelchairs. Oh, do you actually have trips?
Absolutely. We have a whole list of trips that we do every year.
Okay.
And I go out separately from that as well. And we go to visit our partners. We actually assemble the wheelchairs. Wow. We do a multitude of distributions to people of all ages and circumstances, and also different types of regions. It could be rural. It could be a little bit more urban environment. Mm-hmm. But it's extremely, extremely humbling and rewarding. Yes.
Wow. So I did not realize that was not just like a setup question. I did not realize you took people on trips like that. So can you share maybe a couple of your favorite stories that were most?
Oh, God. I mean, there's one that's just, I've said it many times before, but it's sticking in my mind this week in particular, because I'm going back to this country. And we actually had a tragic situation happen with our partner there just this week. But it's a story of a boy that I met, 14 years old, in Jamaica, who lives in Kingston. And Jamaica is, you know, a place that I think most Americans think of in terms of vacation and a tropical escape in some regards, but it is a pretty dangerous place at times if you really think about it. And this boy lives in Kingston. He was born with a disability that keeps him from walking, so he's never really ever been able to walk. His mom died when he was 6 years old, and the father pretty much just abandoned him, so he lives with his grandmother. And he also has vitiligo. Vitiligo is a disease that it changes the color of your skin. So it's a discoloration of skin. So you look at his skin and you see areas that are very, very pigmented and others that are not. And it's pretty striking visually. And so we came to his home, and he's being homeschooled. Our distribution partner there, Food for the Poor, does wonderful work. And they were able to give him a tablet so that he could be educated at home. And the reason why he needs to do his schooling at home is because he's severely bullied. And it's dangerous for him where he lives, not just at school, but also in his community. He's viciously bullied because the children are making fun of his skin, and also because of his disability. So this boy, we show up, we bring him this wheelchair, and he's just full of life, super sweet. He literally is crawling on all fours out of his front door and meeting us on the porch. And he has a little bit of a speech impediment, but we could understand him clearly enough. And he was just so loving. And, right before we left, we told him we would need to come back to adjust his wheelchair because we had identified some things that needed to be adjusted. And so we told him we would come back. And then we said, is it okay for us to give you a hug? And then instantly he started crying, and he said, nobody ever wants to hug me. And it was just a beautiful moment. There wasn't a dry eye in that area. We gave him that hug, and then we prayed with him. We left, and then we came back as we promised a few days later. When we get there, he exclaimed, you came back, you came back. I prayed to God that you would come back. And he said, I wanted another chance. And we said, another chance? Why did you need another chance, Antoine? And he said, because I made a big mistake. I cried when I first met you, and I shouldn't have cried. And we said, no, that was okay. It's okay for you to express yourself and cry. And it was just so authentic and beautiful. And then right before we left, instead of us praying, he said he wanted to pray for us. And so he ended up praying for us. I tell people he almost sounded like a Baptist preacher, with his cadence and just passion in the way he expressed his faith to us and prayed over us for our safety, and just thanking us for coming to him, and just really gratitude for the fact that God answered his prayer and giving him a wheelchair. So stories like that just are, we see it all the time, but that was really me because, I'm a mom. I always put myself in the position of, what if this was my kid? And, it's not just a disability in this case, it's other things that teenagers deal with, which is bullying, feeling isolated, not being accepted. But this young man, despite all of this, has such strong faith, and where he gets his refuge in the face of all that is actually going to church. And he told us that. And it was just impressive. And I was so honored to be able to answer his prayer with the wheelchair. So I learned a lot from him. And I feel like that's probably the story that sticks the most in my mind right now.
Yes. What a gift. And imagine how his life has literally been transformed now with having a wheelchair. It's just beautiful. Really wonderful work that you're doing. Well, I know you have a God-sized story of how you got into the role of being CEO. So why don't you share that a little bit about your background that led to it?
God can be really loud, and then he can whisper, and you have to be listening and be attentive and be willing to listen and then to follow. And at the time when I searching for things to change in my life, I was a little bit at a crossroads with my marriage at the time, and just trying to find my footing as a woman of children who are about to leave home to go to college. I think it's something that a lot of women go through that are raising kids. It's like, what do I do now? What my life going to be like? What is our home life going to be like when you've had these little creatures that have been giving you all this love, right?
Yes, and you have 2 boys, right?
Correct. And you look at it and you say, they don't belong to me. They belong to the Lord. And my job is to just get them ready for the world. But you still realistically have to figure that out. And I was working at an organization in Southern California and Los Angeles, and I was happy, but I was in a way not happy. I was happy with the work, but not sure of myself in terms of my place in what I was doing professionally, emotionally, for my family, my marriage. And then I got recruited. A recruiter contacted to look at this position at Free Wheelchair Mission to lead the organization, which at the time was founder led. And I just said, no way, I'm not doing that. It's in a completely different county, so far away from everything I know. My kids are in high school in a different county. Why would I go to Orange County? I don't know it. All I know is that it's on the way to an amusement park that my kids like to go to in San Diego. And essentially, I decided to listen to God and take the interview. And I was really impressed with the profile that the recruiter shared on the organization, the results, the reporting, and really what resonated with me the most. And it was because of my heritage, was the impact they had made in Haiti, which is where my family's from. And I went into the interview thinking, I'm just doing this because people around me suggested I should do it, but I'm not going to work at this organization. And God had a different plan, because by the time I got in the car, the 2-hour grueling interview was over. I literally said to myself, with this big smile on my face, but a little bit of bewilderment, oh God, I really want this job. And then I said, I think they're going to give it to me. And it was only the first interview. And for a role like this, typically there's many rounds, but sure. I just had this confidence, and I just knew. He made it so clear to me. Mm-hmm. Driving down the freeway, or up the freeway to go back home. And I got the call within like 20 minutes from the recruiter. They want you to come back. And that's how it all happened. And I just followed, and I tried to figure out, okay, am I going to move, and how's it going to work? And my marriage is, on the fritz right now, like how's it going to work? And he just made everything so clear. And he also made it where he opened doors that I thought in my right mind were going to be closed. And here I am 8 years later, remarried, happy, and really feel that leading Free Wheelchair Mission in a way is what I've been called to do.
Mm. It's often that way, isn't it? One time I was invited to go on a trip to Turkey, and I got the email and I just deleted it. And then, it just was not the right time. And then another email came, and then finally I'm like, okay, I'll go. And then of course we're, far more blessed obeying and doing it than, saying no. But it is often sometimes not as clear what that next step is. And I love to hear how you've been in this role now for 8 years, and what an incredible gift and a privilege to get to serve in that role. So your connection with Haiti, I know in our pre-conversation, you had mentioned both of your parents were Haitian but met in the States, became doctors. So share a little bit about that, because I feel like that's just such the American dream story that you have.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of immigrant families, when they come here, they're looking for opportunity. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of people, it's about leaving a place that potentially wouldn't be able to afford them the opportunities that they would like or they seek. Maybe it's safety, maybe it's education. And so, people know of Haiti as being the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, but my parents were pretty educated, and they recognized that to pursue their dream, they needed to come to a place like America. And so they met in the States. They didn't know each other in Haiti, and they were both doctors, it turns out. And they met in Brooklyn, where they were practicing medicine at the beginning of their careers. My mom was an anesthesiologist. My dad was an orthopedic surgeon. And I was born in Brooklyn and ended up being raised in Long Island I only spent about a year of my life in Brooklyn. And then I came out west after going to college. And, I think of myself as an American, but there are moments where I go, I'm Haitian too, and it's part of my heritage. It's part of who I am, my identity. It was the way I ate as a child. We typically ate Haitian food, and it was the way I spoke because my first language was French, and I also heard Haitian Creole in the house all the time. And it's part of now my story at Free Wheelchair Mission. And I feel intrinsic understanding of the importance of giving back to communities that we cannot forget, because there are far too many communities or countries like Haiti that are in need. And I feel like Jesus calls us to, and there's so many scriptures about this, but to not forget, to share love, to give back, and to serve, and to do so generously with an open heart. And for me, with my country of heritage being Haiti, I feel an obligation to do that. And it's not just, I have the luxury of not just doing that personally with family that's there or for causes that I may champion personally, but I get the luxury of doing it with my job at Free Wheelchair Mission, which is full circle for me. Mm-hmm. And also with my parents both being in the medical field, which was not something I pursued. Sure. I get to give out wheelchairs, which I'm working with patients as well and medical professionals. So it's a full circle moment.
Really, that's really beautiful. Well, and you touched on the generosity component, and this podcast is sponsored by the National Christian Foundation of California. So I know that you often have donors who give to Free Wheelchair Mission through the National Christian Foundation, and that's how those grants are given to your organization. So can you speak a little bit from the donor's perspective of just how you've seen donors be blessed to give to your organization? Because it is so true that you just can't outgive God. And so if your organization is something, even for the listener who's never given to you guys before, but here's this situation, this opportunity, and feels compelled and called to do that, I'd love to just hear a little bit of what have you seen from some of the donors' perspectives who have felt compelled to give generously to your organization.
Yes, it is true that we work very closely with donor advised funds like the National Christian Foundation, as we call it fondly in our office, NCF. And what's great about funds like that is that it's an option, right, for the donor, the giver, to donate to their favorite cause that potentially didn't really exist in earnest or with popularity 20, 30 years ago. It's really flourished, I think. But there are lots of ways that Free Wheelchair Mission gives for people to be able to have the opportunity to get engaged with us and to donate. Beyond giving through a donor advised fund, it could be through Reoccurring Giving, which is our mobilized program at Free Wheelchair Mission, where a person could, similar to the way you would potentially do a Netflix membership or Amazon Prime, it's setting up where you are automating your giving so that by the end of a year, you've touched or moved a community to have the gift of mobility, or an individual or several individuals, and deciding on that amount in advance, and then not having to worry about necessarily being asked or figuring out all of the details of how the funds are going to be removed. And I've seen, to answer your question around, donors and supporters, I've seen so many supporters be blessed by the numbers, the consistency. So when it's kind of like tithing a church, right? When they're consistent in their generosity, what the fruits are that are born from those seeds that they planted, right? Sure. And so we try to, not just through our Reoccurring Giving program, but just for all supporters, whether they give through NCF or they give just a donation through cash, pennies, or anything else, right? Mm-hmm. It's to share with them how many lives they've transformed.
Yes.
So say one wheelchair is about $100, $96 currently, and then you've been consistent in your giving, whether your giving has gone up, a little bit down, depending on your circumstances, but you've been just dedicated to our ministry. We then share with you, this is the number of lives you've transformed. And I've seen it so many times with supporters. I actually spoke to a woman about a month ago who I was trying to thank for a gift, and she was excited because she was going to come volunteer at our gala. And I shared with her, I said, do you know how many lives you've transformed? And she was floored. She never looked at it from that perspective, like equating the dollar amount to the number of lives. And that number of lives isn't just the number of wheelchairs. Technically, it's also the number of families and communities exponentially. And so I then see this woman at the event, this volunteer, and she came up to me again. And she says, that phone call was everything to me. I just never thought about it that way. I've been coming to volunteer here every year, and I never thought about it that way. And she didn't think of herself as a huge major donor who was giving us 6-7 figure gifts, but looking at it in its totality and honoring the fact that she's been loyal and consistent and seeing the impact that she's made was all the difference for her. So that's just one story. But yeah, I see and I hear stories like that all the time.
Beautiful. Well, and with tech today, we have the capability to do metric tracking so much better than we did in the past. And I hear that from a lot of people and organizations that they want to invest or they want to grant, and they really want to see the results of their dollars. And that compels them often to want to give more. So that is a wonderful story. Well, anything else you would like to say about the work that you're doing or what you have coming up? Or
so much coming up. Let's see. I've taken some really great trips this year, and we just had our Miracle Mobility event in Orange County. We have one coming up in Seattle next week where we're featuring some of the work that we've done this year. One of the stories that we shared and will share in Seattle is a story of a young man that got our wheelchair in Ethiopia, and it's through our partner in Ethiopia, Agape Mobility. But it's the Miracle Mobility campaign and event is just an opportunity for people to hear the impact of our work throughout the year. And then at the event and just throughout the next few months, we're talking about the launch of our new wheelchair. So we just innovated to a brand new wheelchair called the Gent for Joy. And it's technically the fourth design that we've ever launched. And it will end up taking the place of the other wheelchairs that currently exist. It's a new product with amazing features. It's foldable. It still has our trademark mountain bike tires. It has more adjustability to it. It has more sizes. So young children who we previously potentially weren't able to fit in our wheelchairs can now fit in the wheelchair, and then also extra large size for larger individuals, made with now aluminum and just more innovative manufacturing practices. I could go on and on, but it's something we're very excited about. And in 2026 will be when the first containers of that product will be shipped from our factories.
Wow. So exciting. That's so encouraging. And I was watching some of the videos and just, you obviously have to adjust for a small child, larger adult, and like you said, the different sizes, and then figuring out how compact can you make the box so that you can get as many as you can into that shipping container, and just can't even imagine all the logistics of getting these all over the globe. So
it's complicated.
Yes, very complicated. Well, that's why they hired you, because you're a rock star. Okay.
Oh, no, you know what, Kim? It's not me. It's my team. Because as I said in that interview, that first interview that I was telling you about, that was actually the thing I knew very little about. I knew very little about shipping, logistics, and doing supply chain. I had to learn on the job. So with me, and it's really about me recognizing where I need to rely on a team of experts. Obviously, now I know how to do those things, but it doesn't happen. It cannot happen with just me or even our leadership team. It's the whole team that makes it happen.
Totally. I mean, it takes a village, and it's all the different skill sets. And it really is the combo of the people that are on your team. And then it is the people that are called to be what we call gospel patrons, gifted to make a lot of money, resources in the marketplace, and then called to be generous and fund your mission and all these other ones that are incredible, all over the globe. And it's a beautiful partnership. And as we often say on this podcast, I don't think we'll be able to see all the effects, obviously, until we're in heaven. And you talk about that one woman and the metrics you guys have counted, which are absolutely true. But then when you think of all the other things that God will show her, that her generosity, allowed. And I think that's the beauty of, we're on this earth such a short time. We pour out our lives, our time. It's not just money. It's our time, volunteering, going on those trips. Yeah. Time, talent, treasure. And in heaven, I think it'll be like watching a massive movie with all the blessings of what God has,
That's a wonderful way to look at it.
Okay, I want to go back to, you just mentioned about, kids leaving home, and do you need to reinvent yourself, and how it's so common for women. And oftentimes I've heard it described as it's like your purpose walks out the door, which is not true. But it can feel like that after, for 20 years, you've been just devoting your life to these little ones, and now they don't need you anymore, and you've done your job. So talk a little bit more for the woman listening who might be in that stage and she doesn't know what to do. Maybe she's been a working mom all these years. Maybe she's been at home and now wants to launch into a new career. What would you say to her?
I would say, I actually tell young moms this all the time, especially those that work with me and any young mom, is to always maintain an activity, a hobby, a thing outside of your children and your husband. And the reason being is because tomorrow isn't promised to anyone.
Right.
And then we know, in theory, if we're doing our jobs right as mothers, our children potentially won't be with us all the time, right, underfoot, right? The idea, I would think, is for us to raise them to be independent, to be productive, to be educated, to reach their full potential in terms of their work or their contributions to their family or to their community, or to be strong in their faith, and not to be dependent on us to do that all the time. And so when that time comes, what are you going to do with yourself? And then what are you going to do yourself beyond working, right? So I say hobby and activity because in theory, even our working for a company or an entity will end at some point, right? Yeah. And it ends, at least, I hope, after a certain time every day. You take a break, right? Right. So what are you doing during those times? And what gives you fulfillment? What gives you joy? And what is in line with your gifts that God has given you? So I always tell people to try to dig deep and find that. And it's really hard when you're a young mom because you're so busy. It's so physically exhausting, right? Yes. Yeah. It's so darling and
survive.
Exactly. You have so many hugs and kisses and amazing moments that I honestly wish I could get back. But it's also hard to find the time. So many people are pulling at you, but it's important to find it because later, when those kids aren't pulling at you and they're kind of needing to be nagged to call you or to follow up with you, right. you don't want to feel like you have nothing left.
Right.
And ideally you find something with your partner, your husband as well. But at the same time, I feel like there's something within our mothering, our wifing that needs to be unique for us to contribute then joy, talent to the family that we are uniquely giving. And so that's my number one thing that I tell people. And then it's prayer. And I also tell people, you think you're praying a lot when they're in preschool and you want them to not, come home with not a demerit for not napping or, not being potty trained. When they're in their early 20s, you have different prayers, right? Yes. Are they going to, follow the spiritual guidelines that you've put upon them? Are they going to finish their education? Are they going to find a job? And are they going to find a person to marry or be with in friendship forever that is going to fulfill them and not take away from them? That is a different type of prayer, right? It's a life impactful and potentially, I want to say, more dramatic, consequential prayer than did that child nap?
Right.
And has more lasting effects. So I say pray and then also have an activity. And I've also told people, pray from the very beginning for your child's spouse.
Yes.
So from the time you're in the hospital, if you have your baby in the hospital, it could be that their spouse is already being born in the room next to you. You need to pray for their path and their journey before they come and meet your child. That's going to impact your child forever. What impact they had in their life. Did they have love? Did they have spirituality? Did they have an education, et cetera, et cetera? So, yeah.
That's good, Nuka. I think that, obviously the role of a mother never ends, but it definitely changes. And as moms, even when they're little and you're sending them to preschool, you're learning to let go gradually. And then it's kindergarten, and God just gives you these different transition moments to learn to eventually really, my job's done. And now I'm there. I'm available if they need me, but I'm more in the audience than being the one in charge of all their little activities and things that they were doing. But it's such a gift. And, God allows each of us, life's never static. We're growing, changing with our careers. But I think that's important to realize, who are we as women, moms? Is there some hobby you do love to do? I lived in Sweden when I was in college, and it's dark there, and you don't have very much light. So I learned to knit, and that year I think I made 10 sweaters. And then all the years later, I've done a few things, but then put it aside. And actually just recently I took it out again, and it's fun. It's just fun to have some hobby, like you said, that I enjoy doing. And so, yes, great encouragement to those moms out there. Well, this is such a fun conversation, and I just want to encourage you in the work that you're doing, and thank you for how you steward so well your own time, talents, treasures to be able to balance your family and lead this organization. But I want to make sure that we also have time. I always want to hear your favorite Bible verse, book you're reading, and a bargain.
Okay. Favorite Bible verse is very easy. It's Philippians 4:6. It's actually a favorite of mine and my husband's. And it's, do not be anxious. I'm sure you know it. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, in every situation, by prayer and by petition, with thanksgiving, be present and give your request to God. So this is like the thing I have to always remind myself of. And sometimes he reminds me of. It's, let go and let God, right? Let him take care of it, and don't be anxious. It's a little bit of what I shared before about my story of where I was in my life and me needing to surrender and just be present and accepting that he has my back, and he probably has tons of blessings around the corner for me if I let him lead.
Right.
So that's that. And you want to know a book? Okay. I was trying to think, because I'm actually not reading a book right now. I'm part of a book club, and we've been on a little bit of a hiatus, and I missed a couple of this year. But there was a book that we read a few months ago called The Art Thief, and I really enjoyed it. My book club has a mix of books that we read. Some of them are nonfiction. Some of them are based on, actual, fictional type stories. Some of them are historical biographies. This one, I think, is by Michael Finkel, and it's a story. It's based on a true story of a French art thief who stole all these amazing works of art that, it's kind of bold thievery from these European museums. And it's not antiquated story. It's the thefts happened in the 90s.
Wow.
And so it's a story about him and his girlfriend and how they went about this. And I love it because it had a little bit of excitement to it. And I couldn't believe that it actually happened. And then my background is that I studied art. And then as I mentioned, I speak French. So I just thought the whole thing was really interesting. So that was a book that I've read recently. Bargain. Well, I will say that I was trying to think about this when you asked me. It was hard because I'm always looking for a bargain.
Who isn't?
But I discovered these things on Amazon when I was going to Brazil. I went to the Amazon and I discovered something on Amazon. I was going to the Amazon to deliver wheelchairs this summer, and our partner recommended, she said, you're going to need something for mosquitoes. And like, you need everything for mosquitoes, not just the repellent, but like the clothing, the this, the that. And I'd never seen these before, but they're these like wristbands that have like a coil to them and that fit on anybody's wrist, a child, an adult, a heavy person's wrist. And on Amazon, not the location, but the app, you can find these boxes full of them, and they come in different colors. And I forgot what they're called, but they have that, it's like DEET and other things sprayed onto the wristband. But you can actually tie the thing around and make it into a hairband. You can put on your wrist. You can pull it up onto your ankle. But it's like basically like a coil. And they come in these bright colors. And what's great about the colors is that you can match it to your outfit. And then you can also make a distinction between the one that you wore on Monday versus Tuesday, so that you make sure that you throw it away and you get a new one. But I thought that was a bargain because of the fact that you could put it on any part of your body and it was not that expensive.
Right.
And easy to pack and not have to necessarily spray every single thing. And it was effective. So
I love that idea. I'm actually going to be in Costa Rica in a few weeks. So I think I might take you up on that. This is why I love doing the show. I get all kinds of tips and then we get to share them with the audience. So someone had recommended a book on the last podcast. I read that. And now I'll add The Art Thief also to my list. That's a great bargain. Well, thank you, Nuka. Thank you for your generosity. Thanks for sharing your story. God bless you in all that you do. And prayers that next year you'll even be able to give out more of these wheelchairs around the world. More people will come alongside you and partner together with you to make it possible. So I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks to Kim, and thanks for friends at NCF.
Absolutely. God bless.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us today on the Generous Girl podcast. We're so glad that you're here. And if you know of someone that you think needs to be a guest on this podcast, please reach out to us. New episodes are released every other week, and you can follow us on YouTube and on all platforms. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.